two,
That's
three.
fine.
Okay.
Yes.
So the Seed School of Los Angeles County, meeting of the Board of Directors, October 14th, 2020. The meeting is called to order at 9:02. I just want to welcome everybody. Nice to see everybody. And I know we have a jam-packed agenda with a lot of ground to cover. So I think we should just get started because I want to make sure we have time for any Q&A. So I think we should just get rolling, and Woody will do the roll call. Just quick little housekeeping, stay muted unless you need to speak, just for background noise. And Woody, do you want to do the hand signal, or do you want people to actually say they're present so you hear their voices? What would be best for you?
Let's say their name. I'll read through the list of names, and then if you could just respond verbally to confirm your attendance.
Great.
So Miss Isabella Costa.
Present.
Excellent. Miss Sarah Ali.
Present.
Miss Sophia Echeverria. Mr. Rod Hamilton.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. Miss Jackie Kimbrough. I believe we got this right. And Miss Jennifer Price Lexter. Lexter.
That's all right. Lesher.
Lesher.
Present.
Gotcha. And of course, Miss Ruth Stallford.
Present.
And just as a notice, does everyone consent to this this meeting being recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right.
This meeting is being recorded. Quorum is present. So we can move on to the first order of business, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. The July 2020 minutes have been distributed. Are there any corrections? Great. Okay, so no corrections. If there are no corrections, then the minutes are approved as distributed, as read. We can move on to the next, which is the August, sorry, I have to shift around here. August 2020 minutes. Those have been distributed as well. Are there any corrections? Great. No corrections, no objections. The minutes are approved. Great. So now we can, we're already ahead of schedule. All right, so let's move on to the next item, which is the compliance reminders. We all need to complete the Form 700. The form, the purpose of that form is to reveal any sort of conflicts of interest. Woody, is there a deadline to complete that form?
It's April 1st of the next year.
Right.
So it will be April 1st, 2021, pending
Right.
any further exemptions or waivers as a result of the current pandemic. But right now it's April 1st.
Okay. But the sooner the better, everybody. And then the other piece of this is we are required to all complete some form of Brown Act training. And I know a lot of us already have. So for those that have not, you can check in with us and we can give you some ideas. The Brown Mini folks always hold webinars and they're not very painful. So you can jump in on the next one. We make sure whenever we get a notice that there's a webinar, we circulate that. And some of you have already had Brown Act training. And so just let us know that you've had Brown Act training and what that looked like. And then that way we have it in our file so that we know it's been done. Anything else on that one, Woody?
No, but I believe Ms. Lesher had a comment or question.
Yeah.
I do, and it may be something that we take up with our accountant, but in terms of the Form 700, I know it's due by April 1st of the following calendar year. Are we starting at the point at which our charter was approved? So anything that happened in this calendar year prior to the approval of the charter does not have to be on the Form 700, or am I dicing hairs here?
That's a great question.
That is, I'm not entirely sure of the answer myself.
Let's find out. That's a great question. So we definitely have someone we can ask. So we will get back to you with a response.
Okay. It goes away after this year, right? I mean, because then it'll just always be a full year, but just
Yeah.
curious. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Okay, so we can move on. And the road to 2022 project plan roll up. Woody, is this something you're going to do, or are we waiting for someone to come on? And
No, I can speak to this. I'm not sure if Leslie's going to join or not, but I'm comfortable speaking to this. And so this is just to give everybody some insight, I guess, into all the moving pieces that are going on for these next 20 months as we get closer and closer to school opening, and really just like I said, just to give kind of a 10,000-foot view of all the different kind of work streams and the different people that are supporting this project to help push it through. So as you can see, some of the dependencies and interactions and like where the things all get together. So this is going to be essentially a living document that will be updated pretty frequently. I would consider, like I said, this to be a dynamic document that is going to evolve as we continue to learn more and more and things continue to happen. I will just show the screen, a quick screen so you can get some sense of how intense and complicated this is. So we have thought it through, being very intentional with all the kind of major deliverables that are upcoming, and then each work stream. So for everything from the charter petition to finance, to construction, school design, development and fundraising, administrative and compliance, board governance, family and student recruiting, faculty and staff recruiting, community engagement, program design, instructional, school opening, and then we have kind of a miscellaneous catch-all as well. I have these folks here. And so on this particular roll up here, again, we've got like essentially a Gantt chart, but you can see we've determined who's the owner of it, who's the collaborator, given some parameters in terms of like when we expect it to start and stop, status updates, critical paths, so things that have to happen before or need to happen afterwards, assign somewhat of a risk profile based on the likelihood of completion and what the impact will be if something didn't happen, and then in kind of a standard project management tool using the Gantt chart so you can see visually kind of the streams of work and when everything starts and stops and how everything is connected. So this will be something that as it continues to evolve and as we continue to work with everybody, can't see anybody now. Oops, it dropped my screen. That you guys will also have some input and feedback in, where we'll be consulting you later in the presentation or later in the meeting. You'll hear from Agility, who's a search firm, so they'll talk a little bit like specifically how you might get involved in that process. But this is just something, I guess, to help us kind of understand the universe of work that's coming, to help us better plan and prepare for each of those things, and then to see how all of this is tied together. So I know it was a super high level overview there, but does anyone have any questions or is looking for more information? I'm available, obviously, but we can discuss that at any time. Okay.
thank you. This is really, really helpful.
Beautiful work. Thank you for presenting it.
And so I think next on the agenda, it's probably me as well, giving an update on the petition.
Correct.
Since we last met in August, everyone has been aware that we've signed the MOU that we approved at the last meeting. LACO has received that and approved that, so we are officially authorized charter now by all means, which is again a major milestone for everybody here and for the school in general. Pursuant to that, or I should say similar but separate but related, is the curriculum development now is underway. We have the team here with the Seed Foundation that you guys have worked with before for the capacity interview and part of the budget. So Ms. Kanikoni, who is our chief schools officer, and then Dr. Chloe Marshall, who is our director of curriculum development. We have contracted with another education consultant who's based in LA and has some pretty deep and extensive experience building a STEM school in Los Angeles in particular. So we feel very comfortable and confident in their ability to develop a strong, rigorous curriculum for Seed LA that is going to be obviously in compliance with all California graduation requirements, and also in alignment with our stakeholders and the things that we're looking to deliver from our own programmatic perspective, but again, also to stay true to our charter of this being a STEM school with a strong emphasis on college preparation and college completion. So real quick update on that. I think that really is the gist of where we are with the petition and the curriculum update, moving closer and closer to school opening.
Sarah had a question.
Thanks, Ruth. So Woody, just confirming the consultant you referenced, is that Emilio Pack?
Yes, it is. So Emilio Pack, actually, I had a presentation here. I decided not to show it. Is going to be working with, it's a firm called 90 Mile. I believe it's his shop that he started. And he has another consultant or another employee that's going to be working named Miss Dorothy Rodriguez, who's currently the director of STEM at STEM prep schools. And so between the two of them, I said in conjunction with our own program team here at the foundation, we'll work to build out this STEM curriculum.
Super. Thanks for confirming, Woody. How long are they on contract for?
So it should be for about 10 months until the plan is to have pretty much a fully fleshed curriculum implementation guide to hand over to the head of school when they come on board next spring.
Super. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just because,
Yep. Oh, Leslie, hi.
just because a number of people know Emilio, I just want to note, so his original proposal was for, I don't know, in what would he, in terms of, it was a lot. It was in terms of a number of years, but also it was up to about 2 million. Give me a number.
I think it was 10 months and $250,000 was his original proposal.
Yeah, and I think also he was looking to do some things that I think we believe we just need to do, right? Like we need to meet families, we need to meet students. We don't want to also overextend or overcommit what the head of school is going to do, right? Like we want the head of school to have some investment in the community and to do some of that work. And so we tried to keep the scope of work pretty narrow and focused, right? Not sort of create like, I think we love the opportunity to work with him, but there are just some stuff we think we should just save for the head of school to do, to include family outreach, student engagement, and then just some of the work that we will do with the head of school. We just didn't want to farm out.
Yeah, and to Leslie's point, his initial proposal was really kind of a soup to nuts, very, I don't know, inclusive, comprehensive thing. And we feel that we have that capability either here with the board or through other partnerships and arrangements that we have in place that it wouldn't necessarily make that. So his specialty is STEM, and that's what we're going to focus on and getting from that.
That's really helpful context. Thank you for that added detail, Leslie and Woody.
I just want to jump back up to the MOU. I just want to make sure, because there had been a question before this meeting about the conditions of the charter.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to make sure that we had met those conditions or where we are. I just was curious if that's done.
Yeah, so when we responded back to those conditions, I think it was at the end of August, per their initial agreement. We had the signed MOU, we had the signed management agreement, and then those conditions that they had identified through their board report, some deficiencies in the charter and some conditions that we needed to update. All those revisions were made and accepted by LACO when we turned it back around to them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Ruth, you met all the conditions.
I'm so glad. For once. That's great. All right. So if there are no additional questions on these items, I think let's move on if we're ready to move on to the funding update.
Flying through this.
Yay.
Hello.
Oh my, congratulations, Lakers.
Yeah. So who is doing this? I'm just so excited to share a lot with the board. So
Why
Leslie,
don't you start? No, why don't you get started?
okay, I don't know if is there a presentation, Woody? I don't want
I
to.
have the slide that you requested previously, right? That's the one you want?
No, not that one. That's more for the new markets. This
Oh.
is the,
Woody, do you have the presentation from last Friday?
Yeah, this is the one from the board meeting.
Mm-hmm. This is not the one.
well, anyways, the one I was, yeah.
Yeah, let's get what you need, Anita.
Yeah, well, let's start by
Let's-
what I wanted to do.
We're ahead of schedule by a few minutes. So let's.
Right. What I wanted to share with the whole board, I think a few people know, Ruth does, that we received this cornerstone donation, significant, large donation, and that is a naming donation. And it is embargoed. We can tell you the name of the people, but it is embargoed until the groundbreaking. Leslie?
Anita, so we're being recorded.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd almost like for it not to be in the minutes, the name of the group, the name of the family. Anita, put it in the chat. There you go.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm Anita's super conspiracy theorist partner. And then Woody, do you see the document I'm referencing?
Yes, I think, but it's the same general question.
So
Okay.
I put the name in the chat. You guys can all research who they are. We have decided, so it's going to be announced and embargoed until, I love Rod's background, I have to say. I need that piece right now. So that's a big one. We also received a.
We should all go to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, Rod, we couldn't hear you. Say that again. You cut out.
We should all go to Martha's Vineyard.
That's where his background is, in Martha's Vineyard. It looks beautiful. Okay, yes.
It's my place of heaven.
Yeah, I didn't quite see this one before, so that was good. So anonymous is not so anonymous to you right now. And actually it includes $1 million towards an edible garden. Have these folks seen the pictures of the edible garden? We should show them at some point. Anyways, maybe at the right time, we could share a presentation. So when in discussions with these donors, they said they were really interested in us having an edible garden. And what it meant is we had to redesign the roof. And that meant a lot of work. Oh, look at, ask and here it is. So here are pictures of the edible garden, rooftop garden. This is the last page of it. So maybe going back.
I only have one picture of that. This is the only picture on this.
It's good enough. It's a good picture. It shows that it's going to be an outside. There's going to be a sink over here, a work area, an outside teaching area with like an outdoor classroom. And what we did have to do though is redesign, and it cost quite a bit to make the roof more concrete and more steel. And so it's not, it cost $1 million to redo the garden. You can go back to the numbers from people. So this generous donor also added $1 million once the building is complete and students come. So it's really
11 million, of which we are not announcing the numbers at all. Sarah just asked something, and the answer, what she asked, which is good. No, I don't think we shared the pictures. Leslie?
Yeah, I will send them.
That's a
while
good
we're- Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to point out is an anonymous donor through the California Community Foundation, and they came in with $5 million. This donor actually even visited the school in Miami, the Seed Miami school, and they are naming the library after the wife's family. So that's a $5 million. Subsequent, maybe to the last board meeting, Mark Ridley Thomas is putting up $3 million from his discretionary fund at his office. I'm looking quickly if there are any other ones. The Pritzker Foundation came in. Another one is another $500,000 anonymous donor. I'm trying to think. Yeah, they're in the middle of this page. Another anonymous donor. And these people are not anonymous to us, but they want to remain anonymous, just so. And Rod helped us get some money from a board member at the Wellness Foundation. But all of that adds up to, well, actually, Leslie helped get, or Mark, the Metro helped get another $1 million that is likely to come in. So I would say we're at 30 million that has been raised. And we have still some outstanding. The Broad Foundation is now willing to consider. Leslie's been talking to Russell Westbrook, a basketball player, and who grew up in the neighborhood. And there are a few others that are outstanding. The Capital Group is possibly coming in. We will continue to fundraise significantly. So that's where.
Yeah, can I just weigh in just 1 second? Because, so we just, I don't know if it was, Anita just gave like a 5 to 7 minute update. But I don't think, I just want to say this openly. Like, this is just a reflection of some, obviously some blood, sweat, and tears. And then just to note that that 5 million anonymous, I feel like anonymous is the word we're going to say, 100 times today. That 5 million, that 5 million anonymous donor literally started out as a possible, what, Anita, 2 million or 2.5 million. And then maybe a match, right? Or maybe a PRI. But I will say, like, I think that the work involved between the initial conversation and the decision, I just want to say, like, I think that, like, on behalf of the Seed School of Los Angeles, I just want to thank Anita for the work that she has been doing. And I am highlighting her, that she and Rebecca, that they have been doing, because there's no one that I'm talking to Anita and Rebecca probably more than I'm talking to my family. And I'm talking to them most days of the week. And so, I just want to say out loud, right? Like, we are leaning in, trying our best to do our best with and on behalf of the Seed School of LA. So great work, Anita and Rebecca and Woody.
Thank you. It couldn't be done without a great partner making this happen. I do want to acknowledge that the large gift came via Bill Sire, the chairman of XED, through his contacts. I'm deeply grateful that he went out and promoted this to his friend. And so that's where we got that one. Um,
Any
I-
questions?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure anyone has any questions regarding the report, this part of the report.
No questions, just echoing appreciation for all of that incredible work. This is incredible. Thank you so much.
Yep, I agree. Incredible.
I agree as well. Just thrilled, just thrilled. Thank you.
Yeah, I am thrilled too. I'm really, really excited that this is working and happening. So the one thing I just want to clarify is that I really think it's an important time that we have the opportunity to continue to raise money. I know there's a rhythm to all of this, and when you're doing well, in the spring, post-COVID, when we were hearing from foundations that they were postponing, we were kind of like, okay, but there's also a rhythm when you're doing well, and I want to make sure that we capture the moment. So if you know of folks, I think it's still an opportune time to go out there. Even though we're doing a groundbreaking, I don't want people to think that we're stopping fundraising. We can continue to do so. And what it really does, and we'll show you, is it reduces the debt that the school is burdened with. And every amount of debt, the money we don't pay in debt goes to kids and goes to services for kids. So,
Yeah, so then Anita, I just want to note, based upon what you said, so what although we know we're there, like what I think we should probably decide is what we're all saying, right? Like, so that we're actually not in any way communicating, like we're there, we're good, we're finished. And so when all is said and done today, Ruth, I think that might be helpful for us to all decide, like, what is the narrative, so that we both can be as transparent as possible, but maintain momentum.
Right. I agree. I was thinking about what the message is. Is it, we've met a threshold that allows us to move forward, but then we add in, that, we still need to fundraise to offset debt. Like we'll come up with, some language that's clear, and because that's the truth. So, but this is an incredible accomplishment. Oh my God. Yep.
Ruth, just echoing that request for additional language that we can share with potential funders. I have somebody, a potential funder via a colleague at Goldman, but it would be nice to have that language to give them an update.
all right, do you want to move to the challenging discussion related to new markets, which is how
Our agenda has us on a break, and then the next piece is, I'm sorry, Anita, go ahead, sorry.
Mike also sent over a deck. Anita, do you want to wait for him or speak to that, or is this
I think
fine?
here's my process when I'm thinking, is to go through the deck that Mike did, and I will go through it, and then I want to come back to this as a summary. Or there's a certain section in the deck that I'd rather use your summary than what was in the deck, if that makes sense. But I'm happy to go through.
Mike is on too. Mike is on. Just so you
on, and
Oh.
the way Mike and I have communicated about this is that I will walk through it, but Mike should chime in if to clarify or correct anything I'm doing, as I am going to try to do it in a simplified
Let me get
form.
back up.
Anita, do you want us to hold questions to the end, or do you want us to interrupt with questions?
I think interrupting is helpful because it's a pretty complex stuff. I mean, I find it complex, so it's not to say, so I'd rather make sure that people understand it at each step of the way. So I'm happy to interrupt and take questions right there.
Can I just, and so the goal of the presentation is not for us to all understand it as well as you do, but just to ensure, that the board has an opportunity to probe and ask questions.
Correct.
Great.
be too big. Yeah.
You are,
Trying to-
okay, Yael, you can go to the next. That's just the beginning one. You know, and this, I'm not even going to go through this. So I will say that what I'm trying to do initially is explain a little bit about the new markets program and then how it fits with the CDL. But I will keep this slide up only just to say that this is a slide we typically show to people about the benefits of the new markets program as opposed to other kinds of lending programs. In this case, there really wasn't an option and didn't make sense to look at any other. So I don't think you're getting a good deal here, but the issues maybe about new markets are just that we can finance pretty much in this case. Well, I'm going to skip it. It's just not that important. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Sorry. So the reason why I say this is that typically we say it can finance 100% loan to value, which is the case, but in our case, it's costing, I'm going to use it 89 million and, or 90, I think I used 90 in things, 89, 90, we'll use 90 as a simplest rounder number, 90 million, but the way we had to do this is that we had figured out of the county money that is set aside for boarding and the academic day money, how much money could we afford in the worst case for debt? And that came out to about 2.8 million a year. So then you had to back in and say, based on everything, how much could you afford in a new markets deal? And in this case, it's not the 100% because it's about 70 million. It is a fixed rate for 7 years. And then and I'm going to just try my best to explain. Let's see if, let's try the next slide. And we're going to go to the next slide. This is just that this was created in 2000, and it really is about trying to create jobs in low-income communities through commercial. This is the one I wanted to mention, how the tax credit works. And so what it is on this total investment, and I'm going to take 70 million for right now. There's a tax credit that in this case banks typically buy, and it's 39% of the 70 million, which is about 27 million. And then what happens is the bank says, but it comes in over 7 years to the investor. So it's like 6% 1 year, 6% the next year, 5%. I forget but it comes in over 7 years. And so they say, because it comes in over 7 years, we're going to pay you a certain amount for those tax credits. For that 27 million of tax credits coming in over 7 years, we're going to pay you, and in this case, right now, they're paying us 75 cents on a tax credit, which is a little over 20 million for $27 million of tax credits coming in. But the way that you get, so all right, I'll wait. So I'll just let that sit for a minute. So basically what we're doing is we're selling these tax credits that we can't use. Then somebody a bank is giving us the amount of 75 cents on these tax credits. So they're giving us 20 million of equity. And then after 7 years, they will have taken 27 million or whatever in tax credits. And that amount is forgiven. And therefore we don't have to refinance that 20 million. I'm going to let Mike afterwards explain the nuances, but I think that is the basic. All right, let's see what else, if there is more in this little presentation. Yeah, I don't think this is so important here, so we're gonna do that. Okay, ex-ed fees. So let me talk about how we get these tax credits. So what happens is there's a competition on an annual basis for new markets tax credits. Ex-ed applied well, we applied 2 years ago for seed and received it a year ago, received $50 million in new markets. That's a huge amount, first of all. It's the highest amount we've ever received in a high, it's like what organizations get usually on a national basis. We got on a local basis. But then we figured out that beyond the 50 million, there's an opportunity. If we could get another 20 million of new markets tax credits, we could boost up the amount of equity and make this project even, better, more affordable. So we've been seeking other people's allocation, other organizations' allocation. And there are 3 that we anticipate getting allocation from. One is from the investor who is almost going to put in 5 million, I think it's 4.9 million of allocation, but I'll call it 5 for this sake. The other is the Los Angeles Development Fund has also applies for tax credits. It's mainly, they do a lot of commercial development deals, and they've done a lot of different kinds of things. Children's Institute, Gay and Lesbian Center, a bunch of things. They allocated 5.2 million to us. And then we are going to a group called Civic Builders that in New York that typically invests in charter schools across the country, and asking them for about, it's close to 10 million. So it's like 5 from Chase, 5 from LADF, and close to 10 from Civic Builders. So all of those, though, everybody has fees. And so each of these organizations have fees, including ex-ed. So most of all, we want to disclose ex-ed's fees and then disclose the others to make this work. So I'll disclose these fees and then soon go back to the slide that Woody had up front to explain the full-on financing. But the way that ex-ed's fees work is 2% is paid at closing. That pays for all of a lot of our work of lawyers. Mike's worked for many years on this, and Laura's work and all of that. We do have a 3% fee. Our fee is at the back end. We don't take as much. And then there's these very minimal fees related to asset management, and that has to pay for audits and things like that. Our fees total 5%. We're learning is we're about the lowest in the country, that the others all have fees much higher. So Civic Builders fees are much higher, and LADF is not that high, but they require an upfront deposit, and Mike will summarize that after that. But these are nominal fees when you compare, as the last bullet says, to the loan forgiveness of $20 million at the end of 7 years. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to stop talking soon, but this is just, there's a special purpose entity that's going to be formed, and there's a diagram, I think, in this next slide that shows all of this complicating stuff. I think at this point, I think I'd be helpful, instead of going through the diagram, if I go back to that slide, Woody, that you had, because I think I'd like to explain the whole financing where we're looking at it right now. and then come back and let Mike fill in all the blanks. You know, sorry, you probably have to stop this one and move. Yeah, this one, if you could raise it. I know it's not precise anymore and everything's been changing. So it's not precise, but it's an approximate to give you a sense about it. So what I want to just start is walk through how we get to the 90 million. So we start with this tax credit equity that I mentioned, that is by selling the tax credits, the 27 million, it's a little over 20 million. And then what we have to do is figure out how do you get the remaining, in order to get 70, you have to have the remaining 50 or so. So what we're doing is taking our philanthropy, 20 million of our philanthropy, and we're lending it into the structure, basically. So the philanthropy is going to seed the Seed LA school, or the Seed School of LA County. And then we are lending that Seed School into the New Markets Tax Credit structure. So it's approximately 20 million that we're lending in. There is an LA County loan separate from anything you have seen. LA County is going to lend at 3.25% interest of $5 million. It's going to for approval in November, mid-November, but we think it's there. And then we're getting what we call these leveraged loans from community development finance institutions, which are nonprofit community organizations designed to lend. And it turns out, good news, is that 5.75 is now going to be 5%, which is really saves quite a bit. I just put, was all approximate, done at a certain point in time. It's probably not going to be exactly these numbers, but these are the partners. And I just wanted people to know who they are. And it'll total probably 24 million because the Weingart Foundation is now looking to put in $1 million as a PRI. So so we're going to kind of blend that with where it says LA County loan. So when you add all those up, you have 70 million in the New Markets Tax Credit financing. There are a bunch of fees, so you end up with a net of 67 million. And then so we're taking the remaining Seed LA philanthropy and it's outside of the structure. And then it says bank loan at 4.25%. We're likely to get that at less, probably closer to 3.9. Mike and I have a call at 11 this morning to find out more what that would be. So that's the structure that we are looking at. Two other things one other key thing. What we've had for the last month is kind of a contest as to who would buy the tax credits and provide the loan. So who would buy $70 million worth of this structure and do the loan? And for a long time, our preferred partner, who we've done probably 20 deals with or more, is US Bank. But we were dancing with them for a long time. And relatively at the last minute, we had to go loan in it originally, but they decided to back off. And plus they gave us a lower rate. So then we spent a lot of time with Wells Fargo and Chase and a couple other banks, but it turned out Chase was the most willing to move ahead. When I let US Bank know, these are all good relationships I've had for a long time. The US Bank folks said, wait, we really want to come in again. Please, please, please. And that was as of yesterday. We'll come in with a better rate. We'll come in at 3.7% bank loan. So we have told Chase they're it, but if US Bank came in significantly lower, maybe we would change mind. So in this situation, I think we had submitted some materials that included US Bank, but it is now Chase, or at least that's what I'm saying today. And that's a key thing I wanted to mention. I have talked for a lot, and so feel free to just fire away questions. I can't, either it's not making any sense or I don't know.
Anita, it makes sense. I mean, to me, it does. This is incredibly complicated, and I know there's so many layered pieces. So I really appreciate you walking us through. I just want to make sure I heard correctly. So we've settled on Chase. US Bank wanted to come in with a different loan amount. What was their new offering, their percentage?
On the phone yesterday, they told me either 3.65% or 3.7. But actually, Chase has already come on the phone, told us 3.9. So I don't know. We had to actually make a decision in advance of having anything written on the loan. We have a written piece related to the pricing of the credits. They both came in at 75 cents. And then what this allocation, the fact that each one was willing to come in with allocation also. So they were actually pretty similar. This was a situation where US Bank was spending months with us. We're submitting documents on this loan, and then they backed out on the loan. So it made me nervous having them come back in because they already backed out once. So that was one reason I chose to go with Chase. So what we have is a situation, a couple other things. There is the way the new markets works is there are these applications on an annual basis. And the only way you get to qualify really to get new allocations is if you spend your money by a certain date that they require. And at the moment, that date, or the new application, that date is January 15th, 2021. So when Civic Builders, for example, is looking at allocating $10 million to this project, they're really saying, can you close by January 15th? Because you really mess us up if you don't. And we're counting on you to close by January 15th. And we've been messed up before by others who say they're going to close and then they don't. So we are, and also XED is actually planning to apply for this for future projects. And so I also want to close by by January 15th. And to do that, it means that we have to align all of these resources now, get all their attorneys on phones. And our goal is to close all of that financing. That means get all the philanthropy, all that 30 million, although some of it's already in. So I would have to count how much is already in, but a significant amount's in. And get it all into a fund. You have to pull all of this together. My goal would be to put it all together by the end of the year. By end of December, we probably wouldn't close until early January because that's when Chase needs the tax credits. They don't want them for this year, calendar year. So it just takes a lot. In order to do all that, everybody wants money, like to reserve our So for example, LA Development Fund wants $25,000 to reserve our $5 million allocation. And Mike, there are many others, right, who want money.
Anita, is that a fee or is it a refundable deposit? Like what is that amount?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mike to answer that.
These are deposits that get applied to actual costs at closing. So if the deal actually closes, the costs are already scheduled in the budgets that we've prepared. But from the lender's perspective or LADF's perspective, what they don't want is to incur costs with their own lawyer and then have a deal that doesn't close. So mostly this is insurance for our capital partners against something not closing. We feel confident it will close because we've been down this road before, but you know, we have more visibility into the nuances than they do.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike.
And Mike, so the 25,000 I know is due that like next week or something? I forget.
She had a deadline at the end of the month, and I think, Anita, the working assumption right now is that we should get all the proposal letters lined up for the actual capital stack that we want, and then come back to this board with them all as a package. And at that time, we'll have a schedule on top that shows exactly how many deposits have been requested and who's getting what.
Okay. So, and
Anita, before we move on, can we just make sure we've answered everyone's questions? I know it's a complicated deal here, but I just want to make sure we've heard questions.
Anita, you mentioned that there's others. So LA Development Fund is requesting security hold.
yes, I
who
believe
else?
that. So,
Anita, if I can talk about that, I'm sure that we haven't seen the Civic Builders term sheet yet. So the two allocatees that we want allocation from are Civic Builders and LADF. LADF has asked for 25,000. Probably reasonable to assume Civic Builders will want something similar. So those are the two allocatees. Then Anita talked about the CDFIs, such as LISC and LIF, providing debt into our structure. They're trying to figure out now, do they each get a deposit? Can they share a deposit? You know, by the time we get a letter from them, they will have figured that out. But I would roughly guess $50,000 in total deposits going to the lender side of the deal. XED is not asking for a deposit. I don't know if Chase is asking for a deposit. We just work through those one at a time.
so it could be as much as like $100,000 or so in deposits, which honestly, I don't quite know where that's coming from at the moment because I have to, Laura's on another call, but I don't know what's in the bank account that's there. It is possible that between Seed and XA, we may have to front something. I don't know, just because the grant money hasn't come in or the gift money. We haven't put a call on it for some of it. And anything that has come in, like a lot of the county money and other stuff, has been spent on architects and everything else. So we've spent probably $3 million, I bet you, on all the architecture and engineering already. So we're just going to have to figure that out. But we're confident that it will be part of the overall financing. It's figured into it.
Great.
I have a question about the documents that were circulated. I just want to, the three, I'm assuming they're all in support of everything we're talking about. Does anybody just want to quickly talk us through what these were? Campanile Group, Alongi.
Oh, the Allange, that's something else.
Can we put the Allange to the side for a second and just talk about the XED proposal letter? The deck that you got goes along with the letter that is on XED stationery. That is the proposal letter from the XED community development entity for the $50 million new markets allocation that XED has proposed. Now, as Anita mentioned, that letter that you got identifies US Bank, and now we're talking about Chase. So that letter is moot, and, you know, pay no attention to that letter. But you will get something very similar to it, you know, when we have the capital stack figured out. And Woody, do you mind going to the last page, page 11 of this letter? Anita gave you the executive summary, but if anyone wants to get into the weeds, here you go. You know,
Yeah.
And you have this in your package. This shows you an example of how all the numbers splice together and who's funding what and where the fees are and so on and so forth. I agree with the sentiment that we don't want to get into this today unless people have specific questions, but I do want to point out that they are before you. And we'd be happy to answer any questions offline, separately, you know, in any forum that anybody wants.
And I think the only thing that I'm going to ask is if we do have questions post the meeting, that they actually go to Anita. Because I think that Anita and I are having to have this conversation with so many people that when you ask questions, it helps us to communicate it better the next time. And so if there are questions, that they just go to Anita.
Is there another page or is this the last page, Mike? I was only asking because I thought the budget might be helpful to people, but I don't know what, I don't remember.
Here, Anita, we didn't give the project budget. This is just in the XED proposal. All we're really talking about is the sources and uses for the XED capitalization.
And Laura joined us. Laura's been intimately involved in all of these discussions, especially with all the CDFIs. The reason why she couldn't join us, just to know, is one of the things that's been delayed is utility construction going on, and she was on a call related to that, related to the $4 million loan that we took out already.
Hi.
Hi.
It's been quite a morning, but anyway.
Anita, unless you object, I wonder if we could talk about the Campanile deck for 2 seconds, because I think the board might want to spend 2 seconds looking at what we're anticipating at refinance. And also
Yeah, I don't know. It's up to the board. Do you want it? That's just something I should just check in based on time. What happens is that maybe I should clarify that what we have to show to the lender and to everybody is that we can refinance in 7 years. So nobody wants to join the deal and not see that we will have enough money to refinance, even though we're refinancing only 43 million or something like that, not full on 70. So I don't know, is that something people, I don't know, Mike, that's
No, I just think because it was included in the packet, it just would be nice to just give an overview of what it is. We, that's that. I just thought it would be helpful.
That makes sense.
Context.
That makes sense. Okay, go for it. Where is it?
So while Woody's pulling it up, let me just give you some background. John Fan is a financial advisor. He's got a registered broker license, and he advises charter schools that have hired investment bankers to go to the public capital markets for takeout source. And I think, Woody, I was actually looking for the Campanile deck. It's a different deck. It was in the package. So the issue is we're trying, as Anita mentioned, we want to persuade our capital partners that finding $45 million in 7 years isn't going to be a problem. And also internally, we want to know, can we afford $45 million in 7 years? What's it going to cost us to borrow $45 million in 7 years? And John is the person that we are looking to guide those conversations. And the good news is the capital markets all sort of froze up during pandemic, but in September, 2 charter school deals closed in California at rates that were very similar to rates pre-pandemic. And so what that leads us to believe that if we can finish building the school and get it open, that the capital markets might be accessible to us for this $45 million takeout. And the question is, do we have to wait for the 7-year clock, or can we do it sooner than 7 years? We don't have to decide that right now. We don't know. What we're trying to avoid is prepayment penalties, getting locked into loans that we're borrowing now. If we find it advantageous to pay people off early, we'd like the flexibility to do that.
Great. Woody, I can see you're still looking for the packet. I think I really just wanted the context so that we knew what the documents meant. And then we can read them and we can get back to anybody with questions, so we can, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, I think I told you before that I knew the new markets was up front, but I do need Mike on a phone call with Chase at 11. So if you need it, the Allonge is a simple thing, but if there are any other things related I don't know, disclosure, engagement. I don't know. If there's anything else, make sure it's on or I'm on before 11.
So are you saying there's anything we need to say about this Allonge memo, or is that a separate?
That's a totally separate item, but not related to new markets. So maybe and financing. But we can go to it if you're completely done with.
Are there any questions related to this, the new markets, to this very, very helpful and informative presentation? Thank you.
But maybe I should say that that the assumption here is that we are going to have to gather before to allow us to release money to take on, you know, to approve certain kinds of debt or certain kinds of things. So we can try, you know, and that's going to have to happen, Mike, when? In the next 2 weeks or so?
Yeah, honestly, I think we've said it takes 2 months to close and we're in the holidays. So I would say by the end of October, we want to have a whole suite of term sheets that are on your desk and ready for sign off. And frankly, if I can get those term sheets all lined up this week, I would like to do that and give you more time to look at them. You know, I can't control when you call your meeting, but I will try to get them done as fast as possible.
Okay. Yeah, we are, you know, we're ready to schedule a meeting if we need to, so.
Great, thank you. It wouldn't be long, a long meeting or anything.
All right, so no questions specific to this presentation? Great, so if someone just wants to put in context what this memo is, and then we can.
Yeah, if I can do that, I'm sorry, I'll just take 2 seconds. XED lent some money to Seed, and I drafted the promissory note and the loan agreement with help from Nilura. XED borrows the capital that it uses to make loans like this from the Walton Family Foundation and pays a 1.5% interest rate on the money that it borrows, and it tries to get schools such as Seed LA to absorb those costs. So it's just a pass through of XED's cost of funds. Unfortunately, due to a Scribner's error, drafting error, the loan agreement says the interest rate's in the note, and the note says the interest rate's in the loan agreement. So we just didn't bother to actually spell out the interest rate should be 1.5%. I think it was presented to the board that way, so I don't think this is a surprise to the board. But the documentation does not line up with what we need, and this tries to fix that. And I apologize for that inconvenience.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right.
So do they have to approve the Allonge?
Yes, I think it should be approved. It should be a simple matter.
So we need to approve this right now? Is that what you're saying?
You need to approve that it's a 1.5% interest rate. It was a $500,000 loan that we provided, and will now get paid back, which is good.
All right. So we need to bring a motion to the floor to approve. What do you call this?
It's an allonge. An allonge is an amendment to a promissory note.
All right. Okay, so just some motion to approve the allonge with the 1.5 interest rate.
So moved. Rod Hamilton.
Great.
I second, Isabel.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Do we have enough people here? I'm sorry, you guys, did we have enough? I can't.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Motion is approved. We moved. Great.
Thank you.
Keep hitting mute. Thank you.
Is there any other thing, Mike, that we may need to?
No, I don't think so, Anita. We're good.
All right.
Well, great. Anita, it's 10:06.
No,
So-
I'll stay on, but I just talked to Mike on the Chase call.
Okay, great. All right, so thank you. It's a lot, and we appreciate it. I certainly do. So we have in our agenda a 10-minute break. We're ahead of schedule, but I think we should still take our 10-minute break. So if you all don't mind, well, let's mute, stop the video, take 10 minutes. It is 10:07, so we'll see everybody at 10:17. Thanks. Just give it another minute or until a couple more people's faces pop up, and then we'll get going.
You're on mute, Leslie, if you're talking to us.
I was simply saying, if anyone ever is looking for a roasted chicken recipe, I'm on my 17th roasted chicken recipe in the last 30 weeks. So if you're ever looking for a roasted chicken recipe, I'm your person.
I want it, and I want the chicken now because I'm already hungry for lunch. So.
But Leslie, you're already having a problem making a decision about which one works. How are you going to choose?
No. I don't have any of those problems. I can give you a recommendation today of the two I would have you to use.
Well, please pass on.
Pass along, I'll take it.
The roasted
Well,
All use a good roasted chicken, that is for sure. Oh my God.
yeah, so if you like lemons, I'm going to suggest the lemony roasted chicken.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like. Let's see. I think Arna's here because I think we need her for this next piece. All right.
She is. There she is.
Yeah. Okay, so we are back from our break. So the next item is our community engagement piece. We will talk about sort of the community engagement. One of the things before we move into the actual presentation discussion, I know we've been talking about standing up a community engagement committee, and we've been talking about that for a while. And it just felt like, given all of these strands that are starting to come in, including the head of school search and all of these things, that it probably made the most sense for us to really get an understanding of where we are in that process, what work has been done previously, and then, as Leslie, as we talked about, is identify some of the gaps so that when we do stand up this committee, we know exactly what the purview is and what the role should be for this committee. So it just felt like we needed some more information. And so, this is, in an effort to share that information, and then we can decide what this committee is going to look like, especially because there is going to be some overlap with some other work that needs to get done, and we want to be mindful of everyone's time and commitment. And so to that end, let's get started. This is, hi Arna, it's nice to meet you. So I don't know if Laura is taking us through this document, if Arna is, if Woody is, just let us know.
I'm on mute and I'll do it. So what I did was just after a conversation that we had a couple of Fridays ago, Ruth, Woody, and I, we decided that we would just, for the board's information, kind of let you know what we've done in terms of community engagement, so that could then help inform kind of where we think we need to go with it, what's missing and what we're doing, and what we need to supplement within our own team. So I just kind of try to divide it up in the different activity that we've been doing to date, and you'll just see, and then I'll ask Woody to scroll as I go. But the first one has just been just like general site engagement that was actually started by the supervisor's office and a consultant that they had brought on board, where we just had events at the site, about 6 of them, starting in 2018, I guess, and we did them through. The last one we did was in November of 2019, which we did. and we took the lead for it. So once the consultant finished taking the lead, we did it. So those were basically just they were a party at the site, kind of, but they were also intended, the purpose was to introduce the development teams, both ourselves and the mixed use developer, to the community, kind of give them information on our project, and then just to engage in them on one-on-one discussions with additional information that they wanted about the project, on concerns they had, questions. And so we did that, and that was attended by all of us, Anita, Leslie, and I, as well as Arna. And Arna actually helped me in organizing the one that we had to do in November. And then on a couple of occasions at the activations, we, on the last couple that we did, we actually also had a bilingual person on site with us to help us communicate with the Latino residents that would come and visit us and had questions. And so we were able to engage in that way. So those are the activities that we did first. And then in addition to that, about May of last year, 2019, we brought on Arna so that we could begin to reach out to key stakeholders and organizations on behalf of just the school and have one-on-one, more in-depth meetings with them. And Arna did that work for us and was able to reach about 100, Arna, individuals and organizations. And I've attached to the bottom of the of this presentation the groups that we've met with. And that was intended to introduce Seed LA, but also to address one-on-one, hear what their concerns, input, and feedback was. And then Arna would funnel those questions to us, and we would get ourselves geared up to answer them at the site engagement activities. On one of the site engagement activities, there were a lot of questions about who the student would be. So we prepared a particular flyer for that particular topic. And if you scroll down, Woody, please. Okay, and then the more recent one has been the community workshops with the mixed use team, which have all been done virtually, and we actually kicked off the virtual doing one with the update that we did in August. But since that time, they've held 2 additional update workshops, and they've also formed what's called the Vermont Manchester Community Advisory Committee, which we are a part of. And that committee is intended to just give to provide a formal body in the community with updates on what both of the projects are doing, and to give them an opportunity to give us feedback, ask questions about various components of our projects. And so they've divided, those into design, which was held in September, local hiring, which was held in October. There was supposed to be one in September, I'm sorry. There was supposed to be one on retail and commercial space last Wednesday, but I was happy, but it got bumped for the for the vice presidential debate. So they called that one off. And so it's rescheduled for November. And then there's one in a couple of weeks on housing, affordable housing. So they've had between 40 and 60 people attend these events, and it's an open kind of free for all. People are asking candid questions about the projects, and we answer them on the spot, but we also follow up with written responses to the questions they may have about the projects. And you'll see here what the general lines of inquiry have been about the school, the student population, concerns about conflicts with students outside of the area, curriculum, they wanted local input. I think we've told them that's not exactly how it works, that we have requirements that we have to abide by. And then there's a lot of questions about hiring, local targeted workers, DBE goals, which there's been a lot about that as well. One of the questions that came up, just so that you know what we hear from the community on one of the last calls, was what's wrong with the existing schools? You know, there's poverty in this area. Why couldn't you be doing more retail on that site so there could be more jobs? So that's just the essence of what we've been doing. And I think, scroll down, Woody, I think that was it.
Well, one thing, it might
Go
be
ahead.
worth adding the commitment pledges that go along with being part of that. I think is important to share so that the board is aware that there are five kind of committed
Yes.
budgets that the project is going to either do materially or substantially better than kind of the baseline for the requirements of the PLA. So I
Right.
think that's worth uplifting so that you all are aware that organizations have committed to exceeding the minimum requirements for, I believe it's local hires, low-income hires, and diverse hires.
Diverse, yes. Woody, also about our social media.
Oh, yes. We're now live on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as YouTube. So here's the next slide, Laura.
That's it, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so that's it. And then the back end of it is just these are just the excerpts from our community engagement plan that we kind of began drafting but did not complete. And so these are the different areas that we thought we needed to engage with the community around. And you can see, can you go back to the first one, Woody? The one. Okay, so to introduce the Vermont Manchester to our model, so, you know, we've done that, and the benefits of the public boarding school. So we've done that. We'll continue to do that, particularly as we get ready to start recruiting students once we get the construction of the project underway. Next, Woody. Build and establish relationships with community-based organizations. So we've made a first cut at that, and we've gotten feedback in the community that we need to do more of that. We need to touch base, you know, more frequently. And I think we were on a roll, and we kind of got slowed down by the pandemic, and so we need to pick up our work in that particular area. Next slide, and then to consult with them about, you know, what's going on, you know, with the construction and the opening of the school to answer questions. I think we've done that pretty good. Provide project information and updates, which we, you know, we continue to do as necessary. I think that Arna and Woody and I have also talked about, you know, once we can catch our breath as construction gets underway, is to be able to provide a regular, you know, like e-newsletter or some type of communication to provide regular formal updates. Next, Woody. And then to identify champions of our project that can help us with the dissemination of information and promote it to potential families, teachers, and other staff. And then also to work towards having a strong communication and partnership during the school's operational phase. So those are what we set out as our initial 6 goals for our community engagement work. And then the last slide, I think, just talks about, again, these are just the types of community stakeholders that we've engaged with and what we were looking to get from each of them. Mostly the community, faith-based and civic, they were kind of in the same group, the educational organizations. And then the last slide, and then the council office, of course, and the supervisor's office. And then the last slide just talks about our various engagement techniques would include as we go through this process. And that's it. And then at the back of the slide, which you probably will be able to see easier because it's kind of dinky here, are the list of organizations and individuals that Arna met with since she's been on board with us. And with that, we'll ask questions, or Ruth, you're going to lead us through the next phase of this.
Yes, the next phase is to ask questions. Thank you, Laura. I actually have one quick question. Is so moving forward, the team consists of Woody, Laura, and Arna. This is the team. I mean, I know there's support from other people, but that is still the team intact. Do you have a clear division of role of what you're covering?
And Ruth, I'm not sure that is the team, right? So I think that as the project continues to unfold, then based upon sort of our objectives during each phase of the work, I think the team evolves, right? I think that Laura and Arna and Woody will always own some relationships, but we are pretty close to starting the work, and we've got to develop a student engagement strategy and a family engagement strategy. And I actually don't think that that's the team, right? And so I would say that, like I don't think that, yeah, so that's what I will say, that I think the team is going to evolve based upon where we are in the ramp up of the school.
Thank you.
Nelora, Woody, Arna, anyone disagree?
No, I think that's perfect. That's
No,
perfect. I
no,
think we're just
totally agree.
doing what's needed in the here and now, but understand that there are pieces of it that there'll be other staff brought on board to lead
Yes.
that effort. So we're kind of engaging, and the three of us try to check in once a week just to, you know, talk about what's going on in the community, the different events. And I've been kind of working with the mixed use team on these community engagement events as part of our larger coordination efforts with them on more than just the community engagement piece. So I've been that, but Arna and Woody have also been on some of those calls. I've made a couple of presentations on those meetings around just an update on the project and our local hiring. So that's how we've divvied up the work.
Yeah.
And in terms of any follow-up questions after this, who should we address them to?
I think those do go to Woody. Well, I think, so, well, it all depends on what it is, Ruth. So, because I do think that we have to flesh out a stakeholder engagement plan. And I use that term because I think Nelora brings up a really good point, that she's been our point of contact with the mixed use, right? Like, and there's some technical elements of that work that I don't think should shift, right? Like, I don't want, and so it really is like, what's our, I think we have to flesh out what's the work between now and school opening, and what is the work with each stakeholder group, and what's going to be our strategy for community engagement or stakeholder engagement. And then the answer to that question will determine, I think, the who. So I think initially it can go to Woody because I think he's touching bases with everyone. But I think your questions over the last month or so have fleshed out that we need to create a transparent stakeholder engagement plan so we all know what our role is in the process and in the strategy.
Totally concur, Leslie, totally concur.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
I think for me, there's a question about where do we see gaps, right? Like, I think that would be helpful for me to hear from like the board so that I'm not like sort of, you know, planning in an echo chamber, right? Like based upon what you've just heard and based upon what you're hearing, like where does the board see that there are gaps?
So Leslie, just two quick things. One is more around clarification. When community members raise questions about input around curriculum design, I'm just wondering if we've given a response along the lines of once the school is open, we'll have a school site committee where school stakeholders can take part in that kind of dialogue. Arna, I see you shaking your head, yes.
Well, so let me, you said, what have we said, right? So there has been, there's been some inquiry and people have inquired. I think the first thing we said, Sarah, was that like we needed to make sure that our curriculum actually aligned with our charter and state regulations, right? Like, so first we said we've got to meet the bar and the seed bar. I also think the other part was that we actually really wanted to make sure that we gave the head of school the opportunity to determine what communities of practice or what professional learning communities are that she or he wanted to develop, right? Like we would set the expectation, but wanted to be very mindful about over obligating ahead of school. I feel like we've already over obligated the head of school, but we want to be careful about that. So I think that's where that answer, that whatever the advisory committee is, I think we have to pause until we get the head of school. You mentioned curriculum, but I'm going to speak to something else because it is so, because there has been really a request to really kind of almost test to see if SEED is actually interested in authentic engagement. We actually have said we would be more than willing. There are 3 contracts that are non-SEED FTEs, so they're outsourced. So it is, Nelora, don't let me miss this. It's food. So on the meal, the caterer or food, security, and
Maintenance and
/ janitorial.
yeah, right. So, so those are 3 contracts that we have to put out to bid. We did commit to having some type of advisory committee from the community, so to make recommendations to the head of school. So while we couldn't commit on curriculum, we did commit on that process.
Leslie, that's helpful, but just again, for further clarification, just per our charter, just needing to have a school site committee, and I know they have, varying names from places to place, but just knowing that that is also a container for curriculum discussion for the community.
Yes.
Or school site council, I guess is what I meant to say.
So Sarah, is there a timeline on that, on that council? Does our charter require us to have it in place before July 1st, 2021?
I don't believe so. I think that's something we should confirm, but I think once the school is up and open, it definitely needs to be in place. But I just raise that as something we can be sharing with folks to say that there is, per our charter, there is a plan to have that mechanism in place for people to weigh in.
Great, thank you. Sorry, the clarification.
No, that's okay. And then the second area where I see a potential gap or continued need to communicate and maybe over communicate as we get closer to engaging more stakeholders. Nelora, you referenced a talking point on one of the documents that I think is incredibly important around the boarding school, the residential component, and just thinking about the recent proposal from Deb Halaland and Elizabeth Warren. It's connected to, a separate topic around truth and reconciliation among Native people and their boarding experience. But for me, it just raises the larger conversation on what it means when we say we are a school that has a residential component and all of the layered feelings and issues connected to that piece. So just something for us to be mindful of.
Great.
Okay.
And so to that, Woody, I know, I'm assuming you're taking notes here. So I think to Sarah's point, Ruth, I think that we will have to have a conversation around language, because one thing I think we're going to have to do is work our way out of using the term residential. And it took some time here in DC, but the pain in which it is experienced, and the messages that it seems. And so I would just ask that we sort of also plan an opportunity for us to talk about language and then talk about sort of how we communicate and what we will use and won't use.
Okay.
Other gaps? Rod, Jennifer, Ruth, Isabel?
Leslie, not a gap, but just a question on the timeline to begin engagement with students and families. What does that look like right now?
Yeah, so I'm going to sort of give you 2 schools of thought here. So once financing is closed, I think it really opens up the pathway for us to, sort of aggressively begin to do a few things, right? So we have historically identified a recruitment, admissions, community engagement person who has some admissions and recruitment and family engagement expertise. actually earlier than we have hired the head of school. Right, so the head of school is scheduled to be on board by July 1st, right? We probably identify that person before, like in the late spring, but on board by July 1st. It's possible that we could actually either wait that hire, wait to identify the recruitment of families and students, the person who will do that work, until July 1st, or we may do it in March. But I think we've done both, right? You want to make sure that the head of school actually is really closely working well with this individual. And so you want to give them sort of final decision. But I think we might have it completely teed up, right? And ready to make a hire at the point that we identify a head of school. So I'd say between March and June, because it's a slow process, right? Like it is a credibility building process, right? It is not, come go to our school. It is like, we want to get to know you. We want to meet you. We want to, it is a relationship building process. And I think it is probably the one thing that we just need to do. We just need to nail. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I apologize that it's not like on this date, but I think it is, we will have it teed up and no later than July 1st and perhaps as early as the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Arnett, I'm curious to hear, I know the memo highlighted some of, I guess, the higher level challenges that elevated through your conversations with community members. But I'm curious if there's one that stood out in particular for you that you felt we needed to be really clear and consistent on our messaging around, in particular as a board, as we talk to prospective funders and what have you. I'd love to hear if there was anything that surfaced for you.
We were very instrumental under the legislature's direction with coming up with what we call frequently asked questions, which it seems like at every meeting or every event, several questions would continue to populate and come to the surface. The one that really still populates now is around what is a boarding school. In the community, people believe a boarding school is a place for bad kids. And that's where people who don't want their children want them to go. So we continually are having to refine the messaging that we give around a boarding school. What does that mean? No, we aren't bringing the bad kids in a system, what you call a bad kid, whatever that person's definition is, into this community to make it worse. So that's kind of been the work we've continued to have to answer. I was on a call last week with a local group for the Catholic Church that's across the street, and they were saying, well, are these the bad kids that nobody wants, or are they going to be able to come into the community and make it worse? So we are still having to message around that, and it continues to resonate, just an understanding of what does our terminology when we say boarding school. And Leslie was very clear when she talked about residential, how are we going to message that? And how do we spin that so it's positive and doesn't connotate a negative image in the community that we're in?
Thank you for that.
And I just will say that if that was not the question, right, then I'd be a little concerned. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't tag team, but that really should be the question. And I think I think that there's this sort of both historical experience, right, that communities have had with residential programs, but there's also this disconnect around, well, this can't be a great opportunity if you're providing it to us. Right? Like it's this sense of we're not worthy of this. And so maybe this must be for bad kids, because that's when you spend money on us, is when we've actually violated, right? Or when we have crossed the line. Like I don't think that communities are used to people front loading the opportunity. And so like I would be really surprised if Arna had spoke to something else, some other frequently asked question.
And to supplement Leslie's point about, is this for us? Even on the Facebook page, and I think on Twitter, I've gotten a couple questions wondering what is the tuition? How much does it cost? So they don't even believe it's coming there, and if they do believe it's coming there, they don't believe it's something that would be afforded to them, free of tuition.
Yeah. And if so, why did you build it here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I want us to stay on time, but I also want to make sure that we discuss everything we need to and get the questions out that we need. I also think some of this discussion in the next couple of items actually will impart some more information. I think that rolls into some of this. But I just want to make sure if there are any other pressing questions that you, let's put them out right now. Otherwise, we will just continue to send questions over to Woody if we have them.
Hi, it's right. I think it's not so much a question as an observation. I spent 10 years building LAUSD schools in that neighborhood, meeting across the street from this site at the Mark Ridley Thomas Constituent Services Center with his empowerment committee, which is really powerful. And throughout that community, the Catholic Church I went to, so I know it well. It seems to me, and it's a burden, but to the extent that Seed School can have regular presence at the regular meetings of these community organizations, it starts to build a familiarity. And the questions that come up aren't necessarily posed confrontationally. They're just come up in the course of ordinary communications and the life-to-life connections that we have. Now, that's like a full-time job. So, but I think that if we concentrate, I was happy to hear about this, the advisory committee, and we're a constituent of that. So we will have a regular presence there, presumably. But to the extent that we can have people attending the empowerment, council and the other organizations there that are influence makers, we will personalize our presence in the community. And I think that personal touch is very critical in these kind of relations. I think a lot of these questions go away once we're up and operational, once there are parents who can be frontline articulators of what this school is and why they're there. So we have kind of a two-year gap until we get those invested stakeholders in the school who are members of the community, who can speak to members of the community. So it's really about continuing the education and developing that face-to-face connection there.
hey, Ruth, just as in our notes, I think that figuring out I have two comments. One, what are the quarterly, monthly meetings that are occurring in the community? And I think that's an opportunity for the board. So I do think that that'd be a great opportunity. I think we need to sort of whatever we decide, whoever is going to do what, we probably should do our own internal comms training and media training and messaging training. But I think the other one is that Woody, if we could just make a note, I think it's to adopt, and I don't care which one it is, right? Like an official community engagement framework, right? So that if we adopt the framework, then people can see our work. People who know community engagement, they can actually see the authentic steps that we're taking, so that, yeah, I just think it would be helpful for those people who are actually engaged on a daily basis in community engagement. And so, because I think we're doing it, I just think that we probably, as we've transitioned to multiple players, should just sort of formalize it.
Leslie, I love that you're sharing that, because it takes me back to what we've discussed previously on our efforts to do with and not for.
Yep. And I think we're there, Sarah. Like, I think that, I think being deliberate about moving from a startup to a actual standing ourselves up, right? And I appreciate, like, what I don't want to communicate is that, like, we have all been in this, like, you know, I don't know how many different jobs Laura is doing, and you know, Arna is probably talking to more people than we ever imagined she would, and yeah. So I just want to value that, but I also want to say, like, okay, I think we're at a good place to evolve both our strategy and our engagement with one another.
And Rod, just so you know, we have a list of all of the current empowerment councils, as well as the regular meeting groups that we have been informed of, that we do have a presence and attend. Since the pandemic, a couple have gone virtual, but they're just now starting to come back on in the last 3 weeks. So we'll update that list so that board members, I'll get it to Woody so that you all can know when those are, if any of you want to attend those.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is enormously, really so helpful. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for sharing it with us. And, you know, we'll move forward with, you know, with a lot more information. And Leslie, thank you. Okay, so we are actually sort of right back on schedule. So we're gonna move on to the construction update. So the 2 items are groundbreaking ceremony and general update.
Anita had to roll off. Who's doing ground? Am I doing the ground?
She's back.
And actually, for 4 minutes, I can be on.
Okay, great. Why don't you do the ground and then I'll fill in.
Oh, the groundbreaking? No, I thought the construction, neither do I need to be on. Laura is the right person for the construction update, including utilities, because she's got the latest update, and timing with Bernard's and all of that. And Leslie knows as much as I know about the groundbreaking. Yeah, so I think I'll roll off just so that I don't get late to this call, but thank you.
Laura, you want to do construction
update first? Sure, I can do construction update first. So we are the utility company that we selected, actually was one of the 3 that the Department of Water and Power said we could select, is supposed to start their work on the 19th, which is next Monday. They were a little delayed because the traffic control plan wasn't quite right, and so they needed to update that. So they're supposed to start on Monday, and the team that's putting on the groundbreaking has actually asked them to also come out and bring some of their equipment as part of the props for the groundbreaking. So they're going to be on board. With regards to the major contract, we received back from the general contractor Bernard's their comments to the construction agreement that our attorney developed. So we received that week before last, and she was able to go through it last week. So we're all kind of trying to put those pieces together, and we're expecting from the general contractor a price on Friday. To give us a price on, you know, the last set of drawings that, the 85% drawings rather, that Abode submitted. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that it, you know, because they've been working with us all along, it should. But what they did is they received subcontract bids up until last Friday, and then they spent this week putting their final bid price together. And so we're hoping to have that from them on Friday. And so then we'll finish negotiating a contract with them and be ready to execute a contract hopefully by mid-November or so. As you know, at the same time while we're trying to close the financing, and the construction start date is like January 15th is when we're trying to get it going.
Great. Ruth. Okay, great. So everyone should have, so the groundbreaking is on the 21st. That is this coming Wednesday. And just a couple of things, you know, if you recall, like we, the C team really felt like we would like to have this actually pushed back. But the supervisor's office really wanted to have it prior to November the 3rd. And so I just want to note just like the timing of it really was kind of out of our hands. But I think it is coming together. So they're trying to keep it down to a very small, a small gathering. Actually, they are now hoping that only about 40 people will be there, and some of that includes press. There is a virtual opportunity. We are strongly encouraging people to participate. It's going to be about a 45-minute ceremony, which will include both live people and a video. And Metro has taken the lead in creating a video. And that's sort of it. I think it's going to be live people, including Supervisor Mark Ridley-Thomas, including maybe a video from the mayor, including some local council members, and myself and Anita. And yeah, so I think that's it. It's 45 minutes, some in person, some video. And I think we are really trying to make sure we have a strong presence via Zoom and social media. It'll be live streamed, both from the Mark Ridley-Thomas's Facebook page, someone else's social media page. I'll actually send an email out of how you can live stream it beyond the Zoom invite. But the invite, if you RSVP, you should get a Zoom invite in the next day or two if you haven't already received it. Nelora, anything I'm forgetting? Anything significant that I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's it.
Ruth, questions?
Right. Any questions? Oh, I have a question. Are we able to forward this invite, the virtual piece of it, to people that we think would be interested in joining or that we want to make aware?
You know what? I think you can, but can we actually do that through Rebecca? Yes. So we are going to do, I'm pretty sure we are going to do our own, if we haven't already, our own strong email blast. Yes, I think so. So I'm sorry, don't forward the link. Because I think they are trying to manage it. So go through Rebecca. That way I actually won't give you the wrong information. But yes, I think that's fine.
So after this meeting, we'll make sure that we send you all an email that explains how to follow up with Rebecca, and we'll just do that. Okay.
Sarah, I think there was a question that just came in. There is an acknowledgement, but I don't know that I don't actually know that it completely speaks to what we've actually talked about before. I think that there is a plan to actually speak to the history of that site. But let me look at, I just got a new run of show, and I'll just be really specific with you. So let me take a look at it.
Thank you, Leslie.
Mm-hmm. Any other? Yes.
Yeah.
Jennifer, meaning you would encourage the question from Sarah? Or was that Jennifer? I'm sorry.
Yes, that was me. I would encourage a land acknowledgement.
Yes. Well, let me just I don't actually know that it's not planned. I know we've had the conversation, but there are lots of cooks in the kitchen on this one.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to be super gracious and figure out when my foot needs to go down or draw a line in the sand. So let me just do that.
Thank you. We understand.
Mm-hmm. That's my update, Ruth.
A good update. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You know what? I'm sorry. And we are going to make this cornerstone donor, we are going to make that announcement. The supervisor is going to make that announcement at the event. There might be more announcements.
It's fluid. It's a fluid situation. It's incredible. It's incredible to be at this point It really is. You just have to take a moment to breathe that in.
You know what? And Anita shared the who, but I'm going to deeply respectfully ask that we actually not put that person's name in any communication. And you guys, I don't tend to be so, dictator like, but we haven't signed the gift agreement, and we don't want to do anything. So when I say don't even say their name out of your mouth, right? Like I have to be that clear. And don't assume that I'm being extra, right? Like I'm actually asking us not to put ourselves above the project. Just don't communicate it. And that way, when I say to the donor that we've only shared with the board and they understand the confidentiality, we all have, violent agreement. Sorry.
No, it's important. We need to, follow through and do what we say we're going to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we can move on. Oh, good, we have time. Great. To the head of school search update. I'm going to turn this over to the agility team, first to the C team, to Woody, to introduce everyone, and then we can get deep into this. Thank you.
We have a couple people that have just joined. One with the foundation, Ms. Hopi Moody, who's helping to oversee the project here for the head of school search. And then we have the staff from Agility Consulting, Ms. Christina Greenberg and Mr. Ron. I'm probably going to get your last name wrong. Could you say it for me, please?
Rapatalo.
Rapatalo. Okay. Yeah.
Emphasis on the second syllable. There's
Yeah,
always with so many syllables.
It's I want to just have an opportunity for the board to be able to, one, see the people who are kind of leading this process and when it can bring the first head of school for CLA to fruition, and then also to give you guys some insight into the process and a quick overview of what to expect in these next couple of months. So,
hey, Woody, can I chime in here before you guys get started?
Yeah.
Hi, Ron. Hi, Christina. Hi,
Leslie.
So I just want to note, like in the spirit of doing with and not for, right? Like I just want to acknowledge, right? Like we have a search firm, and somebody might say, well, how did that happen? But we knew like we needed to hit the ground running like right now. Like it is a long process. And we actually began to have this conversation a year ago, right? That we actually wanted to make sure that as everything lined up, like we didn't get under the gun, and we stayed in the cycle for head of school searches, which really is the fall. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, yes, we actually did not make it as inclusive a process, but we did do a significant amount about a year and a half ago, a significant amount of due diligence on our end across all of our schools to select a search firm so that we could actually hit the ground running and they wouldn't be new to seed. And these folks actually did our head of school search in Maryland last year. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that that's how we got here.
thank you for adding that context. You guys here?
Great, thank you, Leslie. Oh yeah, thanks, Woody, for sharing. I'm Christina. Ron's here as well. Yeah, we'll do some quick intros on us and then talk about our team. And as Woody mentioned, we'll also talk a little bit about the process. Obviously, with a startup, it'll be evolving just as you're evolving. But to Leslie's point, we know that there's a very defined time when school leaders are hired, right? I always say no matter when we start, it ideally ends in March, right? So we need to start now so that we have time to really talk with the community, get to know what you need, and then very quickly transition in the next month into recruitment, talking to finding, selecting the right leader so that you have someone secured by the time that the best school leaders are taking jobs in March, and you're able to really acclimate them and be ready for them to join you by the summer, the latest. So that's why we're getting going so quickly. Thanks, Woody. We can go to the first slide. This is a little bit about agility. I think it's also in your board packet, so I won't necessarily read it aloud, but a few things I want to emphasize. One is that, we were founded by myself and my partner, Allison Wyatt, 5 years ago. Previous to founding Agility, Allison and I both had our own talent practices. So we've been doing this. I've been doing this for a little over 10 years. Ron and I have actually known each other for about 15 years in the school leader recruiter space, as well as other kinds of recruitment that we've done. And we have 12 people total across the country. We do search projects and compensation projects and recruitment. And having been a Californian, I lived in LA for 8 years. I went to UCLA and stayed for 4 years after college, and lived in Northern California most of the rest of my life. We definitely know the context, particularly of charter schools in California, nonprofits in California. I've actually been the board member of 2 different charters here in Oakland over the past 10 years. And so definitely understand that context, as well as just more general search and recruitment broadly. And we've done projects here in Southern California and of course in other parts of the country. Another thing that's important about Agility is we really do take diversity, equity, inclusion very seriously. Everything from our placements, so kind of, thinking about, and, here you can see some of the stats we've had in terms of, folks of color and folks that identify as women in our processes and the success that they've had. But we also really believe that at each stage of the process, we need to be evidence-based and thoughtful. And I'll talk in a little bit later about what that means for searches, but it's something that we really take seriously, that our searches are very inclusive of the community and the folks that we're working with, and that your organization is trying to support, that we're using equity at every stage, and that we really are trying to bring a diverse group of folks to the table. Thanks, Woody. So this is just a quick synopsis of me and Ron, as it mentions here. So I've been doing this kind of talent work for about 10 years. Before being an independent consultant, I worked for New Leaders for 4 years, running the recruitment placement operation up here in Northern California. I also worked for Senator Boxer many years ago, right out of college, and worked for the Streisand Foundation, and then went east for grad school and came back soon after. Ron, do you want to give a quick intro of yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on Zoom with all of you. Hopefully there'll be a day in the near future where we can actually be in Los Angeles, but right now, sure, just like all of you, just about all business, at least in our end, is being done virtually. So as Christina mentioned, we met in 2006. I am a career changer into the education sector, though I've been working in it for the last 17 years. Like most Filipinos I know, I started off wanting to go to med school, but decided not to do that. So I went through working at New York University and Morgan Stanley before I found my passion working in education and started working Teach for America in 2003. And so I've worked in a number of places since then and landed Agility Consulting because I believe in the power of running equitable, inclusive searches to land amazing, equitable leaders. So thank you.
Ron? So just to give you a quick update on the process that we use in searches like this, and this is very much what we've used with Seed and other colleagues before and other clients before. We will, of course, establish the search committee, which I know is something that Woody's been working very hard on, getting a diverse group of folks from different pieces of the community involved in the search process. We will take the first piece of leading cultivation calls, resume screens, initial phone interviews with candidates. So that's really something that our team owns. In addition to kind of the paper screen, as it mentions here, we do formal phone interviews. We also have a video intake system where folks respond to a few video prompts and record their responses to those. And we've actually found that really helpful too for clients, in addition to seeing our phone interview notes and reading the materials, that we're also able to capture some information about the real person via video that way. Typically for a role like this, let's say we'll get 60 or 70 people that will apply total, maybe more, we'll see. But from there, we'll do cultivation calls with many of them and kind of get them excited about the role. We'll do phone interviews with probably about 20 to 25 of those individuals. And then from there with the search committee, we'll narrow it down to sort of 5 to 7 people typically that the search committee will engage more deeply with. During those interviews, we often integrate a performance task. It says here held in person or by video conference. We're assuming everything's virtual for the foreseeable future, but of course we will see what happens. But we built a fully virtual process for multiple searches now over the last 6 months. And so that's our assumption. Once the search committee is finished engaging with folks, and from that 5 to 7 is narrowed it down to 2 or 3 individuals that they feel are the most highly qualified, then we'll create a more formal process. Again, It's typically a full day interview. When we do these over Zoom, we often break them up because doing Zoom for 8 hours straight is pretty exhausting. So we'll often break it up over a couple of days. But having the final candidates interact with, again, a number of different stakeholders in different situations and get a chance to get feedback. Also, as a board, of course, you'll have a chance to meet with and engage with these individuals either virtually or in person. And then once we've collected all the information from those interactions, we've done references, we have kind of the full bank of details on these folks that we can gather. We'll have a final conversation with you as the board, and in concert with the Seed Foundation, make that decision on who will be appointed. So this process, and I'll go to a timeline slide in a moment, but this is just an overview of what the steps are that we'll be taking. I'll pause there to see if there are questions from anyone about the different stages, what we do, what we're asking others to do.
Christina, I think the only comment that I will have is that I just want to make sure that we while we are building it to be virtual, we don't so determine that it's going to be virtual that if we actually decide we need to do something in person, that we can't pivot.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, Leslie, and I think we're very open to it. And I think we'll just want to, obviously see what case rates are like locally and more broadly, and then also just make sure that we set up candidates for success, that they feel comfortable with whatever is done. But yeah, I think that that's definitely a possibility. And, I'm a short flight or drive from LA, and so it's not, it'd be easy for us to help support that as well if needed.
Great.
I just have a clarifying question. The search committee, the number one, how far down the road are you with that process? And what is that process?
We are not, Ruth, because you don't know the answer to the question. So that search committee will start, we're starting just to define stakeholder groups, not the actual committee. We'll actually bring that back to you, right? Because it will need to have significant presence of the board. So yeah, we're not.
Thank you.
Great.
And then just as a quick note, and I'm sure you all know this, that there's, Brown Act pieces interspersed in here, right? Being a charter school board, and we're totally aware of that. I do probably 8+ searches like this a year in California for charter organizations. So we're very used to and comfortable with all those pieces, and we'll make sure that we're aligning to the calendar and the things that have to be done in special meetings versus regular meetings and all of that. So we will make sure that's taken care of too. All right. Thanks, Woody. And the next slide. This one's a timeline slide. It's a little bit small. So again, hopefully you have it in your packet, and I'm happy to follow up with any questions later on. But just wanted to give you an overview of kind of when things will be happening. So as we mentioned, we're conducting the needs assessment now. We're connecting, as Leslie mentioned, with stakeholders and trying to figure out who the partners are that we should be talking to get a deeper understanding of what Seed LA will look like, what the school will look like in the community, and kind of what we need to know before we can launch the role. We'll be having a conversation with the search committee, hopefully in early November is our target, to be able to review what we've heard from partners, finalize the candidate profile, get feedback on the job description. We'll also be sharing that with you all as the board, of course, as well, to get your feedback and make sure that it all looks good to you. Once the job description is done, and again, we'd love to launch by early to mid-November. We'll kind of see how the timing is. As long as we get it out by Thanksgiving, that's really fine. We find November is kind of a month where we start cultivating people, and we can, do that in different ways. And then by December, January, that's the heart of when people are really looking, right? School leaders are really looking for roles and thinking about their next move. But we will do our best to get that out by early to mid-November. And then, we'll be cultivating candidates again, November through January is the primary time where we're really going deep and trying to find people, get them excited about the role, screening them. By mid-January, the search committee will then have a pool of individuals to consider and to interview more deeply. And then our hope is by February to be able to do these finalist conversations and interviews with you and feedback sessions with others, with an offer extended by late February, and then everything done by mid-March. And again, Woody and I have already been talking about kind of the meeting cadence that you have set up and how we make sure that this aligns to that. So I know you have a meeting in February. Knowing you have a lot of other business probably to take care of in that meeting, we'll probably take some of it for the search, but we will probably, just so you know, be adding some meeting times, potentially in February to meet with candidates. And then probably also in March, as you probably know, we have to do the final appointment contract signing in a public meeting that's noticed under Brown Act law. So, we'll also probably be adding a March meeting to be able to do that business so that's done. And you have the person hired as quickly as possible. All right. So I mentioned a bit about our needs assessment process a couple of times. I don't need to belabor it, but just so you have a sense of what we do for it, is really just, touching base with you all as board members and community stakeholders. We will be reaching out to each of you as board members to get your feedback in this first phase as well. Then we'll be, wanting to, through this process, we're really trying to get information about the kinds of candidates we should be recruiting. That's everything from the priority skills and qualifications, the non-negotiables, which is really important for us to know. I always say in this business, everything is critical, right? We never say there's anything that's not important for a school leader. There's such a long list of things that they have to be able to do. But what are those handful of things that are just absolutely essential that someone cannot have this job without being able to do or know or be? And those are the things that we need to really know up front. So we'll be focusing a lot on that. And then we have a whole compensation practice. So we'll be benchmarking the compensation for the role and making sure that the title and everything feels aligned to the skills and qualities that we're looking for. Sometimes folks ask the next slide just about recruitment strategy. We do everything from broad to small. So we do the big net online postings and paid advertising. But obviously as a search firm, if it were that easy, people wouldn't need to hire us, right? So we also leverage our own networks, again, locally and nationally in the school space and nonprofit education space. We'll, build a list of individuals to target and actually, email, call, reach out to individuals directly, as well as folks through a network that can be nominators. I do think, and we'll see, this is a new world with COVID, so I don't know how it will be. The last few years in California, I really have felt like it's best to focus regionally initially, just because it's hard to get people to move here. It's really expensive. But I also think that things have shuffled a bit and may be changing, so we'll see how that goes. But we definitely will focus regionally, but also nationally, because we often have folks that, as much as I say, a lot of people who are here stay here, and or folks may not want to move, there are a lot of people that do want to move here for one reason or another. So we focus on regional outreach initially, and then we also do broader national work. And Ron is super well connected in the school leader space, as are many of our colleagues, and so he knows people across the country, and will be the first one to hear if a great leader wants to move to California. So we will
Christina,
definitely both.
I should probably note, and you'll hear me say this multiple times, that there is a deep, I think, concern, request, desire from the community that we actually make sure that, we are, first of all, I'm not saying, I want us to hire the right head of school, but I also want to make sure that we actually do as much due diligence locally to ensure that local talent has access to the process. And I know that you all, I know Agility believes in equitable practices, but I just want to say it out loud because if I was a local stakeholder listening to the last talking point, that they would actually think that we have an agenda to actually not ensure local access to the process.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I always think local is better, right? The community, the stakeholders, what is really needed. So yeah, I definitely think that's important. And also just for really practical concerns, running a charter school in different states is different, right? And so even just understanding the dynamics of the politics in a particular community and or, the laws and regs and kind of how schools work in different places, it's really helpful. So yes, thank you for that. And we definitely will make sure to look locally and leverage our relationships as well as your relationships as a board and other folks that you know.
Great. And I'm just going to say this so that I don't have to say it later in another email somewhere. So I appreciate the charter experience, but I just would ask that we not so focus that we are a charter, right? We are, and it's the vehicle, but it's actually not, it's not our focus. And so I just want to make sure that we're not laying on sort of, I just don't think it's all, I don't think it compares. And Ron's not surprised by this comment because he heard it within 30 seconds of the last search. But this is, it's a unique model, and I don't actually want, what I don't want is for us to actually brand ourselves as a charter head of school search, when in fact that the politics around that is just too, I think it's too hot. And so if you could just sort of, one, make sure that you are expanding beyond the charter network, and two, not continue to communicate it as, the reason why we can get this done is because we've done other charter searches.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm happy to focus on the broader range of it as well. Yep.
Leslie?
Yes.
In previous searches, have you also then reached out to other schools that are boarding schools or independent schools, heads of schools that have that kind of experience?
So we have, so yes, Jennifer, we have, I think the cert, I think we have, yes, we have attracted independent school leaders. We've actually attracted non-school leaders, right? We attracted people who are running a Boys and Girls Club, right? Yeah, so, and I think we've attracted independent school leaders who have had no experience, right, in an urban community. And we've attracted independent school leaders who actually started their work, right, in an urban community. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very helpful, because as you were talking about broadening beyond just the charter branding for our search, I was trying to understand who else that would be, but that's very helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, and that would be great information to hear. Well, obviously, Leslie, from you, but from others as well. Highly qualified district leaders. Are there folks in the independent school world that could transfer, right, from that to a different context? I think that would be super helpful to know.
And I think the process will allow for us to provide that feedback. I was just giving a really specific directive in this moment that we actually not refer to this and not continue to sort of put this under the charter umbrella. Sure. Just because I don't think it's helpful to see.
Yeah, we can definitely think of it more broadly as a school search, and then, obviously clarify the governance structure if people ask. So just to be just so you have a sense, and again, this isn't, an FYI, but for the search committee itself, people often ask, what are they doing? What are we asking of these individuals? And what does this look like in terms of their work? So the search committee obviously is supporting, your hiring process. We typically meet with them every other week, so twice a month, for up to an hour to go through whether it's the resumes and profiles of candidates that we've received applications from, talk about interviews that we've done, talk about the process, just kind of make sure that it's the accountability mechanism in part for us to make sure that we're on target and aligned with what we need to get done to be successful for you, as well as a place to get feedback and really important guidance as we're going through the search. The other thing, a couple of other things that we do with the committee. One is that we do ask committee members, and we often do this for boards as well, to do anti-bias and norm setting sessions. So we do that. We'll do that together as a group. We conduct semi-finalist interviews, as I mentioned, so kind of these 4 to 6, 5 to 7 people that the committee dives in deeply with. And then also committee members often help, with finalist interviews, whether it's connecting with partners or supporting the board with questions. And sometimes, search committee folks play multiple hats in that place, but getting their help is obviously really important through the process. Just so you can see, because one of the things I know I mentioned earlier on is that we do really care about diversity, equity, and inclusion and want to make sure it's a piece of our process. There are a few ways that we do this. One is that, we ask about your approach to DEI during the conversations we're having with board and others that are engaged with the organization. We want to speak with a diverse range of individuals and stakeholders during our needs assessment. As we're thinking about the job description and the materials and the communication that we're having with candidates about the role and with potential partners and nominators, we also really think about what are the skills, qualities, and experiences that are most important, not because we think they're important, but because we've actually heard that from stakeholders. And we try to really undergird our selection process with those really important characteristics, skills, and experiences, so that everything that we're doing along the way is evidence-based and is sort of aligned to those competencies and the core qualities that we think are most important in a successful candidate. As we're recruiting, we use this sort of, whether it's your DEI stance in our materials and kind of your values in that way, as well as making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable for ensuring that our candidate pool represents a full range of different individuals from the community and that could be successful in the role. We also make sure that if we're asking questions that they're, free of bias, and that we're trying to make sure that all of us are, keeping ourselves as objective as possible and evidence-based as possible and through the process. And then the final piece is just calling out any equity concerns that come up. So if there is a place where you see or we see something that feels like may not be representative of a really equitable process, may not be inclusive, or there's concern around, lack of sensitivity towards diversity, then of course that's something that we want to make sure that we're being aware of. So, these are sort of just high level examples of how we do things, but we do really value and think this is important. A final piece that we don't call out here, but even with compensation, we do a compensation study for every role and provide that information to the board, like what is the market for a role like this, so that you're able to be fair and thoughtful in how you're benchmarking the benefits and salary that you're offering someone. That can be particularly important in a startup organization, right? But I think making sure that what the market is and that everything's aligned to that. And then accordingly, I mentioned some of these, but what are the things that we do to hold ourselves accountable, and what are we asking? This is specifically of the search committee, but obviously, we ask of boards as well, that we're broad and inclusive in our recruitment practices, that when we make candidate recommendations, it's based on evidence. We hold ourselves accountable that we're ensuring that candidates have a really positive experience. I think it's really important that every candidate feels that they're treated in a fair and transparent way. That's both for us, but also for you all. Out of every search, only one person is hired, and we want to make sure that candidates feel and can communicate whether or not they got the job, that it was a really positive experience, that they could showcase their skills and be their best selves, and that they were treated fairly and thoughtfully the whole way through. And then we also challenge ourselves internally as a team, to disrupt unconscious bias if we feel that it's occurring, and make sure that we're self-correcting or correcting a process so that it's not happening anymore. And then some of those we work with, we do norming and calibration sessions, as I mentioned. We try to rate discussions of candidates and evidence, and not just ephemeral things that we think might be important, but actual things that we know are important based on the competencies for the role. And we ask everyone that we work with to try to disrupt bias as well. So that's the primary sort of piece of our content, but I just wanted to see if there are any other questions, or Leslie, anything else that you want to make sure that we cover or talk about during our time today.
Nope, I want to make sure Ruth and the board don't have questions, so I'll wait.
Any questions?
So Woody and Hopi, everyone, if you haven't met Hopi, where are you on this? You guys, everybody here see Hamilton? And the point where Hamilton has been sent home, and it's like, I need my right man. You need your right hand man back. There's something you need to do, and you gotta have your right man. I need my right hand man back. Yeah, you gotta get your right hand back. Hopi is my right hand man, but she's my right hand woman. So, like, I don't get anything done without Hopi. Certainly Linda, but Hopi's doing some serious heavy lifting, and will be our head of school point person for the foundation with Woody over the course of this project. And Hopi and Woody will be in touch. I just want to make sure, Ruth, Hopi and Woody will start a conversation about the search committee. But please, everyone, make sure, like, if you just want, like, if you already know, like, there's just no way you want to be the one to serve on this committee. Like, obviously we can't all serve on the committee, but if you just want to be that person, please make sure you let me know, and let Woody know, and let Ruth know. And that way, when we're sort of shaping the committee, we can make sure that we are prioritizing people who actually really, really feel like I need to be on this committee. There are a couple of you who I hope are already sending a text message or an email now. You can't really see who I'm looking at, but I'm looking at you on the phone. So definitely want to make sure that this is the last conversation we have about the search that does not include all of us, right? And so. Awesome.
Christina and Ron, thank you very much. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. We'll
You're welcome. Thank you, Ruth.
We're very excited about this process.
We are too. It's an exciting opportunity for our candidate. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks.
Thanks, Hopi.
Ruth, the only other thing I want to say is that when they talk about like their commitment to sort of probing bias and equity, it is that they actually were in our last search. I think one of our board was sort of like, you know, not the foundation board, but the school board was sort of like, yeah, we don't really need to do that bias training. Like, we could take that out the calendar. And they actually would not do the search if we would not commit to that particular scope of work. And so I just think that their integrity around equitable access and equitable hiring practices just was critical. And while I think in the moment the board, it was painful for the board, it was literally that work that we did around our own unconscious and conscious biases that actually allow for us to make, I think, a good decision. I'm trying to find Hopi she probably left, but so I want to say that there are groups that I think will be very helpful for us. And I think they listen deeply.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. And I also think in terms of our entire board doing some training, regardless of who's on that search committee, is a really great idea. So
that's what I proposed to them, because initially they wanted to offer the bias training only to the search committee, and I thought that it would actually be a benefit for the entire board to receive that.
mm-hmm. I think so. Wow. Okay. Well,
I'm sorry, this is Elora. I just have a one-off kind of question for Leslie. One of the questions that we're getting from some of the folks that are underwriting the loan is exactly like, what is our process and who are we engaging for the process? And so I want to know if you're comfortable with sharing their name or not, and think of another response if we're not.
No, I think we're comfortable. I think,
okay. And what about the timeline that she did? And I
think it's about 30. I think it's about 15 days off, 15 to 30 days off though. But I think it's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Woody, I'm sorry. Are you comfortable?
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing they asked for that I can see we're not ready for, because they're developing it, is kind of what is the description for the head of school, but I think that's in process of being developed. So I'll explain that.
You could actually give them the draft. The reason why you have to call it a draft is because the search committee is probably going to lift up some non-negotiable competencies.
Okay. Okay.
But I think it's a good draft.
Okay. So Woody, I'll check with you for that. What you're comfortable with me passing on. Thank you.
all right. Any more questions, thoughts, anything you want to share? Got through a lot. Nothing? Bueller? Nothing? Okay.
There's such great progress, and I just continue to appreciate how hard everyone is working. I know that there is so much that we don't see that gets rolled up to these meetings. So thank you, everybody.
I second that. Woo. A lot of exciting things ahead. Thanks for all the great work getting us here. We will follow up with the items we mentioned we would follow up with via email. You'll see emails from us. Arna, thank you for being here. It was nice meeting you. Thank you all. Whoop. Thank you all, and look at that. We're finishing early. That's great. Thank you so much, everyone.
I wish you could smell the chicken. It's smelling lovely.
Oh,
stop it. I need to go
When's he sending that recipe? When's it coming?
Send it
in the chat.
In the chat.
Oh, I'm so glad I said that.
Yeah, it's like nothing. It's like lemons and butter and salt. That's all.
You can't go wrong with those.
You never go wrong with butter or salt.
Okay.
So.
That's it. And it's just, yeah. Yes. That's it. Sorry, I digress.
No, it's good digression.
Sarah, where are you?
Thank you all. It was so nice to meet all of you. I'm looking forward to my continued work in whatever capacity you need. And it's been a real pleasure to be part of this milestone opportunity in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Arna.
Thank you
Thank you, Arna.
so much.
So nice to meet you.
Bye.
All right.
Sarah, where are
I'm in my backyard. Sorry for the disruption and moving around. There was some work being done in my office, so I had to.
No, it's just beautiful. I just
Pretty.
I'm appreciating the tree.
In my back. Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Behind me are new. We put them in, and I'm hoping that they grow nice and tall to kind of match these bigger ones. And this
Yeah.
is the playhouse where I was going to try and escape the good signal there.
All right, everyone. Thank you. And thank you for
Bye.
everything. Thank you for what you've done and what you will continue to do.
Ruth, have you
Excellent.
finished the adjourn? Are we done?
We are at 11:39. Our Seed School, wait, what do we call it now? The Seed School of Los Angeles County Board of Directors meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Yay. Take care,
Bye.
everybody. Enjoy the